Hetmans of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth were the highest-ranking military officers, second only to the king. In the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the first Polish title of Grand Crown Hetman was created in 1505. The title of Hetman was given to the leader of Polish army, and until 1581 it was awarded only for a specific campaign or war. Later it became a permanent title, as did all the titles in the Kingdom of Poland and Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It could not be revoked unless treachery had been proven. Hetmans were not paid for the services by the royal treasury. Field and Great Hetmans. From the end of 16th century there were 2 hetmans in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and 2 hetmans in the Crown, a field hetman and a great hetman. So there were in total 4 hetman titles: Great Crown Hetman, Field Crown Hetman, Great Lithuanian Hetman, and Field Lithuanian Hetman. During joint military operations of the Crown and Grand Duchy of Lithuania armies, the Crown Great Hetman usually was considered superior to others hetmans and served as commander-in-chief if the war actions ran along the borders of the Grand Duchy and vice versa. Grand Hetmans were usually in command of the professional and mobilized army, and during peace stayed at the capital, involving themselves in politics, guarding the interests of the army and planning campaigns. Polish field hetman was subordinates of Grand Hetman, and when on the same battlefield commanded the mercenaries and artillery. During peace they usually were deployed on the eastern and southern borders of the Commonwealth, and commanded all local forces against constant skirmishes and small invasions of the Ottoman Empire and its vassals. Field hetmen were also called frontier hetmen, since they did the same job as commanders of frontier garrisons before the title of hetman was introduced. Lithuanian field hetman initially was called court hetman and commanded the guard of the Grand Duke, while land hetman commanded militia. Later this difference disappeared and they were renamed field and great hetmans accordingly. Contrary to Polish practice, Lithuanian field hetman had full control on army under his command and wasn't subordinated to the great hetman. For a short period there was also an office of royal court hetman, but it never gained much influence. Responsibilities and privileges. Hetman's competencies and privileges, first officially described in 1527 in the Act of Nomination for Jan Tarnowski, included planning and carrying out of military campaigns, enlistment and organization of professional army and mercenaries, supervision of registered Cossacks and Atamans, who were chosen by hetmans for 2-year terms, nomination and promotion of officers at will, choosing locations where the army units were to draw supplies from, supervising the flow of the army's finances, full control over military judiciary. They could also issue laws and regulations for the army, hearing complaints of all civilian personnel against the army and issuing compensation. Hetmans had certain competencies in foreign policy. They could send their own emissaries to countries such as the Ottoman Empire, Moldavia, Crimean Khanate and Wallachia. It was reasoned that the distance to capital was too large and situation in that regions was always too volatile for all decisions to be made in the capital. The hetman had no right to order the forces of the royal court, the royal guard, units equipped by the cities and towns, or private individuals, although during wars those units often voluntarily pledged their obedience to hetmans. Hetmans had no control over the navy, although the Polish navy was always of very limited importance. Hetmans usually had no direct control over the levy, but they could give orders to the regimenters who commanded it. While hetmans were considered to be among the highest-ranking officials in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the hetman status gave them no right to sit in either the Senate of Sejm, unless they held another office that automatically carried with it a seat or were elected as representatives of local szlachta during Sejmiks. Each hetman received a hetman's ceremonial mace, the bulwa, as the symbol of his position. Less common was a horsetail ensign and hetman's sign. In some of the never-realized plans of reconstruction of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth from dual into triple state, the hetman was to be a head of the Ruthenian part, consisting of 3 Ukrainian voivodeships. The reform in 1776 limited the powers of the hetmans. Hetman's aides. A hetman's chief aides and offices included Pisats Polny, field chancellor, responsible for the archives, chancellery, finances, accounting of people, equipment and fortifications, and paying soldiers' wages. Strażnik guardian, security, supervised the scout forces during movement and camping and commanded the front guard. Obozny, camp leader, camp and transport organization, responsible for choosing a suitable camping place for an army, setting up the camp, logistics and security inside the encampment. SZ Pitolny, medical services. Provost military juridicary. Brabantmajster, logistics. Regimentats, second in command in the event a hetman was killed or taken prisoner. The regimentras could also be chosen by the king for a given period when a hetman was not available, or informally assumed this function of the commander-in-chief when no hetman or monarch was present nearby. For example, the commander of a levy en masse was usually called a regimentats. Most of those aides also had a field, Great and Crown Lithuanian add-ons to the titles, depending on which hetman they were serving under. Several new military titles were created after the 1635 by King Vladislav IV Vasa, changing some of hetman's responsibilities. 1637 General of Artillery. 1670s General of Logistics, General of Medics, General of Finances. The Generals of Inspections controlled the combat readiness of troops, however it is unclear when they were created. List of Crown Hetmans. List of Hetmans of the Duchy of Lithuania. Bibliography. Polskie Tradyka Wojskowa, Warsaw, Wydornik Ministerstwo Obrony Narodowej, 1990. ISBN 831176758. Zdzisław Hetmani Rzeczypospolitej, Kraków, 1994. Pogze Hetmana Rzeczypospolitej. Hetmani Korony. Podredaktor Mirosława Nagwielski-Agard, Warsaw, 2005. Pogze Hetmana Rzeczypospolitej. Hetmani Litusy. Podredaktor Mirosława Nagwielski-Agard, Warsaw, 2006. ISNI Centralny I Nadworny Polski XIV 18 Wiku. Spizy, Wit.